Good afternoon, my friends. This is Paul, and welcome to part 2 of my review of Super Mario 3D All-Stars for the Nintendo Switch. I hope you'll forgive my voice during this recording, as I'm getting over some really bad allergies because my room was just thoroughly cleaned, and so if I cough a lot or sound like my throat is scratchy, don't worry, I'm not coming down with a cold, just seasonal allergies. Gotta love them. Now, I reviewed Super Mario Sunshine before on my channel about 4 years ago. Wow, time flies. And I was one of the vehement defenders of the game back then. However, I also didn't get any likes, and instead got a couple of dislikes. And because at the time people didn't really tell me what I was doing wrong, I was kind of just like, why are people hating on Mario Sunshine? What did I do wrong in this review? However, now that I've given this a fresh playthrough on the Switch, I realized that not much has really changed at all, besides the bare minimum of it's now in HD and widescreen. I'm starting to realize that the haters had a point, and I think they didn't like the fact that I overpraised the game and tried to say that anyone who didn't like it was just getting their facts wrong. Excuse me. So, let's take this from the top, shall we? Super Mario Sunshine has the premise where Mario's on vacation on a tropical island, and therefore all of the levels, with the exception of the last one, oddly, have a very tropical feel to them. Now, you would think that this would make the level design boring, as if everything is themed after a beach and a resort and water, wouldn't that therefore cause the level designers to keep repeating concepts and making the game feel stale and repetitive? Actually, I would argue that this is probably the least repetitive Mario game, as every location feels widely unique, has its own music, which, surprisingly, only Odyssey is the only other Mario game to have that trait to it. And there's a great feeling of connectedness to the locales in Delfino Island. You can usually see other courses in the distance if you look in the horizon, and overall it just feels like very natural geography, with the characters running around and living out their daily lives, and the fact that after you collect each Shine Sprite, which is this game's version of the stars and mission system in Mario 64, the game feels like the levels are evolving based on Mario's actions. If you restore a broken staircase in one level, then that staircase will allow you to get to a new part of the level the next time you enter it. And overall, this feels like a great way to tell a Mario story without feeling overbearing. I'm sure you're happy about that, Shigeru Miyamoto. However, where Super Mario Sunshine really falls apart is in its controls. Now, if this were handled by a more competent team of developers, or perhaps if they had had access to better hardware back in 2002, I don't think fans would really be complaining as much. I still stand by my assertions in my original review that FLUDD does not make the game feel like it's not a Mario game, but rather I think it actually enhances the feeling. The hover nozzle feels like a natural evolution to power-ups like the Tanuki Leaf, and really helps aid in Mario's horizontal movement, can help him correct a lot of mistimed jumps, and can also be put into practical use, as FLUDD can help spray objects and obstacles below Mario, especially the puddles of goop that plague a lot of the early levels. And honestly, I kind of wish that there was a replacement for FLUDD in the later Mario games, as man, I could have used with some of this jump correction. However, FLUDD as a character is kind of flat. The voice actor delivers their lines in very dull, robotic ways, and a lot of times FLUDD's tips are stating the obvious or something that you've already done that the game didn't register. Like, I'm fighting a boss and I'm trying to find tips on how to hurt the boss, and FLUDD just says you must find a way to fight it. Well, duh! Everyone knows that. I want to know how to fight it. Now let's get on to the controls, which are where people's big issues with Super Mario Sunshine come in. I have to admit, this game has not aged as well as I believed it to in my original review. A lot of times the Joy-Cons don't allow for the precision movement that I expected from the GameCube controller, and trying to walk along a narrow pathway was an exercise in peril, as Mario would often go zooming off in the direction that I wanted him to go in slower, and instead I'd end up falling off the ledges so much that I wondered, I wish there was a way to just make Mario slow down and be more precise, or even better, if there's the way that the developers could have added the ability to crawl, like they did in Super Mario 64. The camera is not as bad as I think a lot of people make it out to be, but it's also not as good as I made it out to be in my original review. It's still pretty awful, and I wouldn't say that it's an absolutely dreadful thing like a lot of the internet has made it out to be. I think a lot of people just don't zoom out as much as they really should, but I'm not going to pretend it's perfect either. Perhaps it's because this came out after Super Mario Odyssey, but I feel like the camera is really showing its age in this All-Star Pack, as Nintendo could have really used this opportunity to improve upon the fact that the C-Stick is so much smaller on the GameCube controller than it is on the Joy-Cons, and maybe Nintendo could have learned a thing or two from Super Mario Odyssey to improve the camera here. But they haven't. The camera still gets stuck on occasion. Sometimes you'll be staring at a wall, and even though it is nice that the developers added a hologram of Mario so that you could still keep track of his movements when he was behind a wall, that doesn't exactly fix the fact that the camera should be consistently making the player feel like they're in control. Whereas several moments in Super Mario Sunshine made me feel like I was fighting the camera, and the level design, which is bad programming, in my opinion. I think that while I did think that it was a genius idea that the camera would allow Mario to see behind solid objects, I think that was a solution to address a problem that the developers didn't know how to fix. If the camera had been more like Super Mario Galaxies, where the camera automatically adjusted to the correct viewing angle, then I can see where the fans would be like, yeah, Paul, that wasn't a good idea because it was created because the camera was bad. So, yeah, I think a lot of the more memorable experiences in Super Mario Sunshine are going to, as a result, become forgotten as a result of this bad system. Which really is a shame, because Super Mario Sunshine has some amazing moments. Overall, I think that the variety in the mission structure and what you have to do is astounding. There really doesn't feel like there are too many opportunities in Mario Sunshine where the action gets dull or like, oh, not another fetch quest, or something like that. Where the game especially shines is in these levels where you hear the a cappella Mario theme song and Mario's in this floating obstacle course that feels so disconnected from everything else. It has a very surreal, eerie feel to it, and probably feels the most like a traditional Mario game out of everything. However, there are problems with these, too, that are going to prevent people from loving them as much as they should. For starters, the camera is a mixed bag. Sometimes it has masterful angles, but other times it just refuses to cooperate. There's that Pianta Chuckster level near the very end of the game that even in my original review I couldn't defend, and I hated it even more playing it a second time, as this is a re-release. Why couldn't Nintendo have fixed it, or maybe designed a whole new puzzle instead? Then there's also the fact that this game does not have checkpoints. If you fail during a Mario challenge or a secret course, as the soundtrack would say, you have the option to reset the course, and the game is usually generous with providing you a 1-up mushroom near the entrance of the course so that you'll never get a game over. However, if you're actually in the main level, you don't have any checkpoint flags or places to start over. You have to start the entire section all over again. This is especially frustrating when you're playing in missions where you have to go through a lot of rooms, like in Serena Beach. If Nintendo could have done something, anything, even if it was as artificial as adding flags that seem out of context, but yet at the same time make the game more convenient, I think this would have helped it age better. Overall, I found myself getting more frustrated with Super Mario Sunshine than I ever remember doing. Probably because it's been 18 years, and fans have been clamoring for something. Anything. And if this was going to be a simple virtual console port, like I think a lot of people were expecting Nintendo to re-release Super Mario Sunshine, I think they would have been a little bit more forgiving. However, this being a re-release, I think fans were expecting that if you were returning to the game, then a lot of its issues would become more modernized. However, in spite of this being re-released, I think it makes its issues all the more worse. Now let me reiterate, If this game had better controls and a better camera, I think a lot of people would think that this is one of the best 3D Mario games. In fact, I think I probably would have to say that. Well, besides Odyssey, of course. But I would say that this is probably the second best 3D Mario if it weren't for the controls and the lack of checkpoints and the sometimes wonky camera. I really like the set pieces here, and I like how the levels feel like they're progressively telling a deeper story. The water and graphics still stand the test of time really well, as this game still looks gorgeous even without the HD, and I'm sure a lot of people think it looks even better now that it's on the Switch. Playing it in handheld mode is amazing, and while I don't really like the soundtrack to Mario Sunshine, and it hasn't been changed a bit for this re-release, I do appreciate the fact that you can now listen to all the songs anytime you want in Super Mario All-Stars. So with that, my feelings on Super Mario Sunshine are mixed. I think it has some great set pieces and wonderful moments, and the sense of cohesion with everything being on a deserted island really makes for a much more polished, almost open world type of setting that you don't see very much in a Mario game. However, with its bad controls, I would highly recommend playing this game. Like, don't outright dismiss it as being the odd one, but I wouldn't recommend going all the way to the end. Rather, just experience it and then put the game down when you think you've had enough. With that, thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for part 3 where I cover Super Mario Galaxy. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and enjoy a good vacation. Bye!